Anya here, and I'm back with another video for Ophelia Talks. And today we are making a cardigan. I so wanted a 100% cotton cardigan for the summer that I could just wear all day, every day. I wanted an everyday cardigan which looked lovely and stylish and which closed up at the front with nice buttons and which would keep me nice and warm on those cooler summer evenings. So I made this cardigan. I love wearing it. I have not stopped wearing it since I have made it, and I hope you will like it too. For those who like a written pattern, I have a written pattern for sale on my website, which will give you all the tips and tricks and all the information you need to make this project. But you can also just make this project with the information in the video. Make sure you go to the chapters and make sure you make notes so that you know what you are doing while you are crocheting. For this project I used 6 balls of King Cole Cotton Soft. This is 100% cotton yarn. It's lovely to work with. It is great for summer wearables and it uses a 4mm hook. So that is the prescribed hook for this yarn. Now I usually go down half a hook size to a 3.5 for my tension. So for DK I always use a 3.5, but for this one I am both using a 4 to make my fabric of my cardigan a little bit looser and lacier, and I'm using a 3.5 for the ribbing to make that nice and normal according to my tension. So make sure you have the hook size that you usually use and a half a hook size up. Also, of course, you will need darning needle and scissors, and I found these really big buttons and I thought it would be a good idea to use them for this cardigan. These buttons measure 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters. I just happen to have 4 of these, but you could use toggles or smaller buttons, of course, or no buttons. We sell this yarn on our website, so do go and have a look. We've got it in lots of yummy colors, so lots for you there to make your selection. So let's get started on the actual stitch repeat here that we are doing, the different rows of stitches that we're doing. And once again, I am going to make a sampler for you. So I am going to make a smaller sample, not only because it fits in my viewfinder and I can easily show you how this whole cardigan is constructed with this mini sampler, but also because it would be worth you making this along, just to get used to the stitches and how to, you know, sort of go from one row to another. It's easy enough, to be honest, but it's always good to have a little practice. So if you have any scrap yarn, it's worth making this sampler along as well. I will give you all the details on how I worked out my amount of stitches for my cardigan after I have explained how to do the stitch rows. So this time I am using a 4 hook. The yarn is prescribed for a 4 hook, but for my tension I usually use a 3.5. Now if I was to use a 3.5, it would make the fabric nice. I like that type of fabric, but for a cardigan I want it to be really flowy and fall nicely, and for me to achieve that I use a hook that's half a size bigger than what I usually use, and that helps for me to achieve the type of sort of loose fabric that I want to achieve, but it hasn't lost any of the stitch definitions. So let's get started. So for the sampler you're going to make your slip knot and you're going to chain 59. Now 59 is a multiple of 3 plus 2. So we have 57 plus 2. Okay, so let me count to 59. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here we are, we've got 59 chains And now for row 2, we're going to get started with a chain 1. Now you will notice that every row starts with a chain 1. This is our turning chain and it doesn't count, so we just disregard it. Then in the 59th stitch, we are going to place a double crochet. And in fact, this is row 2. And in row 2, we are going to be placing a double crochet in each stitch. So I'm going to be placing 1 double crochet in each chain on my starting chain. So in this case, I will have 59 double crochets. So I will see you at the end of the row. So I have now done row 2, which is 1 double crochet in each chain. So I have my 59 double crochets now. Now for the rows that we're going to keep on repeating, which will be 3, 4 and 5, we're going to get started by doing a row 3. So chain 1, you turn, and you're going to place 1 double crochet in the first stitch. So we are always going to do that because we need an edge to our sides, of course, of our cardigan. Okay, so then we're going to skip 1 stitch here, this one. Then in the next one, we're going to place a V, which is made up of 1 double crochet, 1 chain and 1 double crochet. Voila. Then we skip 2 stitches, and in the 3rd stitch, we are going to place 1 double crochet, 1 chain and 1 double crochet. And this is how we continue this row, by skipping 2, and in the 3rd stitch you do your double crochet, chain 1 and double crochet. I will see you at the end of the row. So when you get to the end of your row, you will notice you have 2 stitches left. And of course, we started here by using the first stitch and skipping the second one. So that's what we're going to do here, but then in reverse order. We are skipping this one and using the last one for our double crochet. So make sure you pick up the 2 strands of the V properly here. There we go, because this of course is going to make another edge, so it needs to be nice and straight. There we go. So we have finished our row, and in this row I now have 19 V's. Okay, so this was row 3. Now row 4, we're going to get started by chaining 1, turning and doing our double crochet, because of course that's how every row is going to start and end. Then into the V chain space, we are going to place 3 double crochets. Three double crochets into the chain space of the V. It's also called a cluster, of course. So place 1 cluster in each of the 19 chain spaces. I will see you at the end of the row. At the end of the row, once again, you're going to do your double crochet into the last stitch there. Voila. So this is row 4. Now for row 5, chain 1, turn. You do your double crochet in the first stitch because that's how we always start. There we go. And this row we are going to do 1 double crochet in each stitch along. And of course this should bring us back to our original stitch count of 59 stitches. So I will see you at the end of the row. So I have made it to the end of the row, but of course you've got to make sure that you don't forget to do that very last stitch. So turn it towards you, pick up those 2 strands and do your last double crochet. What we are going to repeat from here on is row 3, the V-stitch row, row 4, the cluster row, and row 5 the double crochet row. And you're going to keep on repeating those 3 rows, just as I have explained them to you now. And the nice thing about this is it's just, it keeps the attention, because now you have to do a little bit of counting. Then you've got your V-stitch, your clusters, those go really quickly, and then once again we do the double crochet row and we have to do the little counting again with the V-stitch. But it's such a lovely little repeat, it goes really quickly. Now, of course, this is our sampler. For my cardigan, I did 176 chains. The multiple is 3 plus 2. I wanted this cardigan to close at the front and to be a little bit looser. So I measured around the widest part of my torso, just under my arms, and I made sure that this cardigan was looser. And I also made sure I measured it against a cardigan that I already wore. And then that length I chained. And that gave me the amount of chains that I needed. So I worked up until I had used up 2 balls of yarn. And that brought me to under my arms. So just under my armpits. So now we're going to divide our panel into 3 parts. So basically, if you fold it like this, look, then these are your 2 front parts, and of course that one is the back panel. And now we're going to add here and at the back, but of course we need to make sure we leave an opening for our arms, for our sleeves. Okay, so that's where we're at the moment. So I finished in a row of double crochets. I am now going to turn my work over to get ready to do a V-stitch row, but it is also in this row that we are now going to divide our work into 3, because we are going to make a front panel here which goes in, a back panel which is straight, and a front panel here which also goes in. So if you look at it in a diagram, you will see that this is what we are going to be making, and that should give you an idea of how this is going to be working. So here for my sampler with 59 stitches, I have placed a stitch marker in stitch 15 and 16, and here in stitch 44 and 45. So the front panels each are 15 stitches, the back panel is 29 stitches. And we're just going to do our turn as normal. So I'm doing it in the sampler at the moment, so I'll tell you the amounts for the big one in a moment. So here we have the first, of course, which we always do, the double crochet. Then now we are supposed to be doing our V-stitch. So first of all, you skip 1 here, then you do your V, skip 2, and you do your V. So we have divided this into 3 panels now. So now we are going to work up until we meet the stitch marker. And then we will start doing the rows for the front panel. Okay, so this is where we're at the moment. And now here we are going to skip 2. Here we have the stitch marker. So we are going to do a double crochet there. So really this double crochet is now going to act as the double crochet at the end of our panels. So this is row 3 that we have done to get started. Now you must also make sure that everything is still lining up. Okay, so make sure your V's line up throughout your panels. So now we are going to keep working on this panel here, the front panel, and we do row 4 next. So chain 1, we turn, and we do a double crochet in the first stitch. And then we start doing our clusters, because that's the repeat that we are doing. So there we go. So that is row 4 done. Now we are going to do a row 5, and row 5's in this panel and this panel are different. Okay, so row 5's are the same as we know them in the middle panel, so in our back. But here, for a row 5, we will be doing a reduction row. And the reduction needs to take place on the outside. So let's fold this one up a bit like this. So here, so when you're working on this, on these two panels here, on the outside, that is where you need to do a reduction in row 5. So that means I am on the outside of my front panel, so I'm going to have to start with a reduction. So chain 1, we turn, and we start as usual with our double crochet. Okay, so that remains the same. Now the next 6 stitches we are going to do 2 double crochets decrease. So that means 2 double crochets taken together. So you do a double crochet halfway, you start a new one, and then you finish. So yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and we stop, yarn over, into the next stitch to pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And now we are going to finish both those double crochets together. And we do this 3 times, and this will have decreased our stitch count in that row by 3, which is quite handy because of course our multiple is a 3. Okay, so of course here for me I'm not going to be able to do many decreases before I end up with no stitches at all, because I don't have that many stitches, but I will do my best. But also you will be doing these decreases each time you do a row 5. So every time you do a row 5, you're going to decrease on the outside of your work. So for instance, here on the arm opening, you're not going to do your decreases ever. Okay. So here I believe I still have to do my last double crochet here of the row. Voila, there we go. Okay, and now once again we are doing V-stitches and clusters. But it is very important that you work out, make sure that you still keep your V's and your clusters. Look, let's have a look. Lined up, okay? So you see that it is located in this stitch here. So yeah, skip 1 and do your V. Voila, so that is all working out really well. And then here, of course, we've got 1, 2 to skip and work in this one. Now, let's have a look. Yeah, we're going to have to just go for it because obviously we are missing a cluster here, so that will be fine to do so, to have that not line up. Okay. And then of course we skip 1 here and we do a double crochet in the last V there. And of course you will notice that this is going to go in. So chain 1, turn, and we do our double crochet. Then of course we are doing the clusters into the V's. And then here, of course, the last double crochet. Voila, there we go. So we've done another repeat. So now, if you look at it like this, look, you can tell that this is going to be going in. And now I'm going to do another repeat because I can show you that, in fact, this time, when I get started on my row 5, I won't be able to do the decreases straight away because I'm not in the correct location. So this is my arm opening, this here is my neck opening, and that's where I have to do my decreases. So I'm going to get started on my row 5 as normal, but then I'm going to count and the last 7 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to have to do those 3 lots of 2 double crochets together, and of course the 7th one is that double crochet, so that always needs to be done. So in fact, because I only have a short row here, I'm working on my sampler, I am already decreasing. Now this is what you are going to be doing, of course, when you make the sampler, but when you have the amounts for your big cardigan, it's going to be a longer row, and you will be able to do many more rows of row 5s where you have to decrease, and that will make a nicer, a nice long front part. But of course for my sampler this is going to be it. I'm not going to do any more because otherwise it will look funny. So for my big cardigan, I split up my panels in the following manner. So I put stitch markers in stitch 45 and 46, and then here in 131 and 132. The front panels have each 45 stitches, the back panel has 86 stitches. So that's how you split those up there. And so if you look at it now, if you turn over, right, so this is what our work looks like. So now either you start a new ball or you cut this one off, but don't undo the loop just yet. Make sure you make this long enough, okay? So I would try and leave the ball on if you can, because you don't know exactly how many of these rows you will have to do until you reach your shoulders. So you might be surprised at how tall that needs to be. So I worked row 24 here, and I finished with row 41, and once again I've made sure I finished in a double crochet row, so a reduction row, okay? So yes, 24 to 41. So that is for the front panel, as you can see, look. So this is what we've got right now. So now we are going to pretend we are still doing that row 24 at the level where we started earlier here. So I'm going to make a slip knot, insert my hook, and I'm going to get started with a standing stitch into this stitch here where that second stitch marker is. Okay, so I'm just going to take it out because it gets in the way. So it's the stitch next to the one with the orange stitch marker. There we go. Okay, and we do a double crochet on its own because that's how we start our row. Now we are going to get started the way we usually do. We skip one stitch and we work our V in the next stitch. Now if you're unsure, make sure that you follow the V, follow the middle, and this is a stitch that you should be going into, this one here, and that indeed is skip one and the next one. Okay, and that's where you will start doing your V's. And once again you're going to now skip to do your V and then move along, and you're going to work until you reach the stitch marker. And I just keep an eye on making sure that I am placing my V's in the correct stitches there. And then here we are skipping one stitch and doing our last double crochet into the stitch with the stitch marker. There we go. And this is now going to be our back panel, and these here is what we already know. So here we are going to do just repeats of row 3, 4 and 5 in order the way we have been in this part of the panel. Okay, so there's no reduction rows here. So you make this, of course, this panel has got to be the same length as your panel of the front, and of course as this panel is going to be. So once again, continue here with your rows 3, 4 and 5 and make sure you end in a row 3. If you can, leave the end hanging on to the ball, because then you can, if you need to, add some more rows. But here as well, I worked until I had 41 rows. So this is row 24, 25, 26, 27 and so on until 41. So once again here for the second front panel, we are starting with a standing stitch. So make your slip knot, and here again we are going to pretend we are doing this row still. So we are going to continue working the V stitches, but of course we will be starting here with a standing double crochet, and I should have taken that stitch marker out first really. So a standing double crochet, and we do our V stitches as we are used to, but of course here we're just going to check to make sure that they are going to end up in the location that we need them to. And here, to be honest, we need to skip these two, then do one there. Let's have a look. Yeah, 2, and then this one is the middle one for our V. So just keep checking, but it should all work out. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, just make it work out. Okay, nobody's going to notice that you skipped a stitch here or there. I mean, that's my philosophy. So there we go. Yeah, just checked visually that it is lining up, and here we go. We are now going to do a front panel. I'm doing clusters at the moment, so that is fine. We will finish the row here with a double crochet. Now here, yeah, where are we going to put it? Try and get it in that standing double crochet, because that's a good location for it to go in, so it wouldn't move around. But if you have to, you could go around here, but do try to go in there. So now I'm going to do a row 5, so a double crochet row. You start with your double crochet, but then of course here is the arm opening, so I'm not going to do any reductions. I'm going to work with the last 7 stitches of my row here. So let me get started on doing the double crochets, and of course you will have more amounts to deal with than I have. Let's have a look. So that's my 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so this one I can just finish. Then here, a double crochet, but only finished half with another one, and then finished together. So there we go. And that has reduced my number of stitches by 3, which is a whole repeat of my stitch. Repeat, there we go. See, we have reduced by 3 stitches. So now turn, and we continue doing our rows of V's, our rows of clusters. But of course here you just need to see how it works out. And here of course it's okay if it doesn't tally up, because we are reducing. But now here I should try and get it, yes, in the right position. So indeed that is a skip 2 there, and that's perfectly fine then. It works out so that all the other rest are tallying up. And of course that's the most important, to give us a nice visual when we look at the cardigan. There we go. Right, so I'm going to continue here until, of course, I reach the same height. So these 2 are the same height. here I still have to do one more repeat. But of course, when I do my other row 5, I am going to be doing my reduction as well. So make sure that when you have finished your 3 panels, that these 2 panels have the identical amount of stitches at the top. Now is the time for you to connect the 2 shoulder pieces together. Use stitch markers, I did it very badly, do it better, or use clips, or quickly use a thread and sew it in and out and attach the shoulders together. Try it on and see if it fits. Do you have to make your panels longer? Are the arm openings big enough? Is your cardigan big enough? Because this is now a stage where you can actually wear it. So make sure everything is perfect for you now. So I have not sewn in any ends, and that's very important. Do not sew in any ends until you have finished your whole cardigan and have worn it around the house, making sure you are happy with how it fits, how it works, how it feels when you're wearing it. Okay, so now is the time where we're going to do this join. So now that you have tried on your waistcoat and everything fits, this is long enough, you're going to turn it inside out. Now on each shoulder you will have to do the same, obviously, and you're going to get started from the outside here, and you work the amount of stitches you have on your front piece, of course. So we're going to get started with a slip knot, insert your hook. So we're going to get started with a standing single crochet, and we are finding the first stitch here and the first stitch there. We're going to be using the inner loops, so pick up the inner one of that one and the inner one of this one. Don't do them too tight, don't do them too loose, and so you work all the way until you have finished all the stitches on your front panel. And then when you turn it inside out, it's just flat like this. So of course I'm going to cut off the yarn, and once again I am going to leave the end just hanging out. Join the second shoulder. So let's cut this off. So let's turn our work with the good side on the outside. So what my intention is with the sleeves is to work in the round. We're going to start here in the lowest point, so in the armpit, and then we go round, and the first round we do are just going to be double crochets. So you get started with your slip knot, insert your hook, and we are going to do, of course, a standing double crochet to get started right in that lowest point there. So wherever you can easily find a location to do your first double crochet, that's the one. Then we are going to go around, like I said, but of course we are working here with a multiple of 3. So we're going to have to make sure that our sleeve also has a multiple of 3 stitches going around. So this is 1, and then here I have quite a big hole, so I'm going to place 2 stitches there. So that's 1 multiple. Now another one, and you will find locations that you can put your stitches in. You'll recognize these locations and you'll be able to use them again. So there we have 2 sets of 3. Here, yeah, I'll go in here. 1, 2, and 3. So place your stitches not too close, not too far apart, but just right, all along the arm opening here. And of course you're going to have to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So for my big cardigan I had 66 stitches, which clearly is a multiple of 3. So make sure that you know, you do yours to a multiple of 3 and that you do the same on both sides, of course. So I will see you when you have gone all the way around and we are closing up the round at the base here. So when you get to the end of that round, make sure indeed that you double check that you have your multiple of 3. Now we're going to do a slip stitch. This is the stitch where I started with. I'm going to go into the next one so that the slip stitch lies over this one here. So this is our double crochet row. And of course, you know, after the double crochet row, we do a V-stitch row. Then we do a cluster row. So it's going to be the same thing here. So now we're going to get started with a chain 2. And this chain 2 is going to be that second double crochet we do in a V, so after the chain. So we'll leave it for now. But we are going to get started by skipping 2 stitches. Then in the third stitch, we're going to do a V, because that's the row that we are doing now. Then of course, skip 2 into the third for another V, and so on. So I will meet you at the end of the round. So when you get to the end of the round, you will notice you've got 2 to skip. Then the third one is where that chain is coming out of. So into that third one, we're going to add a double crochet, a chain, and then go past the chain under the V there and do a slip stitch to close the round. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to do a round of clusters, but of course we're in the wrong place. So what I tended to do was go into here for a slip stitch and then again into the chain space there for another slip stitch. And this kind of brought me in the correct place for starting my chain 2 and then doing 2 double crochets. So that gave me then the 3 double crochets. Voila. There we go. And then we are going to continue with placing our 3 double crochets into the chain space. I will see you at the end of the round. Just done my last cluster, going over to that next cluster here, skipping the 2 chains, going under the V there and doing my slip stitch. There we go. And now we are ready for another double crochet row. But we need to taper our sleeves. So once again, just like we did in the front panel here, we are going to use the double crochets to do our reduction. So let's get started on doing our double crochets. So you place 1 double crochet in each stitch around. And then when you get to the end of the round, the last 6 stitches, you're going to do them 2 double crochets decrease. So you're going to do the same as we did before, where you start your double crochets, you then finish them together. Voila. And so now you have lost 3 stitches, you've lost 1 multiple, and you will be tapering your sleeve. So once you've done this tapering, you're going to get started again with doing a V-stitch row, a cluster row, and then again you'll be doing another double crochet row where you do the decreases. So this is how you're going to continue throughout your sleeve. I kept on decreasing the whole length of my sleeve every double crochet row. So when you look at your sleeve here and you start doing your V, make sure that you kind of look where you are. See, the thing is here, I don't really want to do my chain here because that's going to offset me by a stitch. So what I've been doing is going into the next double crochet. So although I have done a slip stitch in this stitch already, I need to do another one because I need to be here. So I'm going to go into the body of the stitch, do a slip stitch, and this will have brought me straight above the stitch where I can place my V. So when you start doing your round each time, just have a little look where you are, and if you have to do this little correction, that's perfectly fine, to make sure that in fact your V's are going to be, yeah, look, see here I'm skipping to, yeah, in that same location, so that they all still tally up, all still line up, so to speak, in your design, in your sleeve. And then of course here we have got our decreased area. It doesn't matter where you, whether this lines up or not, you're just going to have to, do the best you can there. Just skip the amount that you need to skip, use the one that you need to use, and then we'll have amounts left. So 2 left, third one to be used, and of course, yeah, that is the one where my chain is coming out of. I am going to try, yeah, and pick up a little bit more than just the V, because that would have been just that slip stitch. Then I'm going to skip the V and go under the next stitch. There we go. See? I've got the table for the decreases, for the numbers of clusters, for the numbers of double crochets in each row in the pattern on my website. So do go and have a look. Now the main thing here, of course, is to make sure that you do the same thing on both sleeves. So if you have started, for example, you've done a couple of rows here, either you make notes or you start working with a second ball of yarn, you start working straight away on your other sleeve. Okay, just to make sure that you are going to have symmetrical sleeves. So now when you have finished both your sleeves to the length that you need them, they should come to about here. The arm opening at your wrist will be larger than your wrist. And that's part of the design, because I wanted the sleeve to be looser. But of course that means we have to do a slight reduction to get it to grab your wrist. And then of course we do the ribbing. Now if you find that your sleeve is already quite tight, you don't need to do the reduction. If you find it is really wide still, you might need to do more reduction, but I'm going to give you the method of reduction and then you can gauge how many rounds you have to do, okay? Here, this is a time when we are now going to change hook sizes. So we have worked our cardigan and our sleeves in the bigger hook size, so a size up from what you normally use from DK. Now I'm going to go to the size that I usually use for DK, and that's a 3.5. So I have my yarn still attached. If you haven't got yours still attached, then just make a slip knot, insert your hook and do a standing single crochet. I am going to do a chain, which doesn't count, and then in the first stitch I'm going to do a single crochet. Well, in fact, I'm going to do a single crochet in the first 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then stitch 5 and 6, I'm going to decrease. So I'm going to take those together. So you insert, pull up a loop. That's your first single crochet that you're not doing, or that you're only doing half. Insert, pull up a loop into the next stitch. And now you finish those together. So you have reduced these 2 stitches and you just end up with 1. So 1 stitch, 1 stitch, 1 and 1. So the first 4 stitches, and then 5 and 6 we take together. So for you, make sure you decrease this arm opening to your preferred size so that it is easy for you to get your hand through it. So I've made it to the end. Here I'm just going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch, and I have reduced my opening. Okay, and yes, I have very few stitches left, so I'm going to get started on the ribbing. And for the ribbing, you're going to chain 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. The 7th one is your turning chain. So from the 6th one here, you're going to yarn over, pick up the back loop, and you're going to do a half double crochet. So you do that for each chain along this chain, of course, and you should be doing 6 half double crochets. So that's 4, 5 and 6. So now take a good look at where we are here on the side, the V's of our single crochets. So this is where we're coming out of. This here is where we're going to skip, and then here we go and do a slip stitch. Then we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. You turn, and now once again we're going to do half double crochets into the V's. So tip the work towards you, find your 6 V's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, this last one here. So yarn over and go into there, and I always do a little count just to make sure that I am not using any of these stitches here. Okay, voila, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Again, you know, picking up the back loop. So there we go. So that's 5 stitches in the back loop, and now I always say to pick up both the loops of the last one, because that way it makes it stronger and you don't create any holes on the side of your cuff there. Then you chain, you turn, and again making sure you pick up the back loop, you are going to do 6 half double crochets working along your little row here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the 6th one. This one sometimes I can't really see where to pick up the back loop, but I do try and go past this one, then come back and pick up this. I know I've picked up 2 here, but that's okay. Voila, there we go. Okay, then the same thing again. This is the V that our stitch is coming out of. This is the one we're going to skip. This is the one we are going to use. And this is the one we're going to slip stitch into for our next row. And this is how you are going to continue making your cuff. So for my cuffs on my sleeves, I chained 10 and then I did 9 half double crochets back loop only. But for this one here, I decided to only chain 7 and then do 6 stitches. So you can do your cuff, your ribbing as wide as you want, as you fancy. You just have to do 1 extra chain for a turning chain, and then all the rest, you know, is your half double crochets. So I just finished my last piece of ribbing here. I finished on the outermost point. This is of course close enough to join our ribbing. So what we're going to do is fold this. So hold your 2 sides of your cuff together like this, making sure you're in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th stitch here, go into there, inner loop, yeah, and then pick up the inner loop of that first stitch on the other side where you're coming from, and then you bring through the yarn and loop it through the loop. And this is how you're going to continue. So you pick up one of the V's, and off you go. And it gets easier, and it is easier than this. But this is how you're going to close up your cuff. And then of course you need to make sure you do the amount of stitches that you have been doing. So I should be doing 6 of them. 4, and then yeah, here 2 more. This one here and this one there. And then this one. And this one. There we go. Voila. So this is what it looks like on the inside, and this is what it looks like on the outside. And as you can see, this cuff is longer than this one, obviously. So here, as you can see, it looks nice on my sleeve. And of course, this one is the version in miniature, also shorter. This one was done with the 9 stitches. So now it is time to start the ribbing for the base of our cardigan. And once again, here as well, we are going to do a reduction row. Now, again, try on your cardigan. Do you like the width of it? Do you want it to go in slightly with the ribbing or not? So again, you need to work out whether or not you're going to do these reduction rows. And if you do, then follow the instructions that follow. But if you don't, then maybe just make sure you can use the leftover strands of your stitches here, or indeed do a single crochet row and use those V's. Okay, so this again is up to you on how you want the finish of your cardigan. So slip knot 3.5, and I'm going to get started here, and we are going to do a single crochet into that first leftover loop of that chain that we did to start with. There we go. That was not easy to get into. And we do a single crochet. And we are going to do that in each loop here that we have left over. I am turning my hook, as you can see, because that makes it a lot easier to get under that strand there. Now I am going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches, then I'm going to do a decrease stitch. So that means I'm going to take stitch 5 and 6 together, just like we did with the cuff reduction. And you're going to do this all along your base. And we are going to come back as well with doing single crochet. So I've done 4 here, 5 and 6 are going to be together. But I'm going to reduce my reduction rate to taking the 11th and 12th stitch together. So I will see you when you have gone up and back again with single crochets and with reducing them. So I have gone up and down with my single crochets, doing some reductions here. Not too much for my mini one, but make sure that when you try it on now, your cardigan goes in a bit or goes in as much as you want it to. Okay, so now we are going to get started on the ribbing, and yet again you need to be here. So this is the left panel when you're wearing it. You need to start here for your ribbing. So now it's time to decide how deep you want your ribbing. For my sleeves, I did my ribbing wider then for the base here, obviously not here because, you know, mini version, but yes, so for here again I'm going to use my magic 7 chains and then do the 6 stitches, and doing that will help you as well for your buttonholes later on. So have the 6 stitches, that's a nice number to be able to make your buttonhole, so take that into account as well. So I'm going to chain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. 7th one is my turning chain. From the 6th one on, I'm going to pick up the back loop only and do a half double crochet. There we go. And I'm going to make sure that each time I do 6 of them. And when I get to the side of the cardigan again, like here, there we go. So I've done my 6 half double crochets. You're going to skip the one it's coming out of, skip the next one, go into the next one for a slip stitch, and then to start your next row you're going to go into the next one for a slip stitch, or rather your turning chain, but it's a slip stitch in this case. You turn and then you make sure you have your 6 locations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is my first one, and you do your 6 half double crochets in the back loop only. Well, in fact we do 5 in the back loop only, and the last one we do under the 2 strands, so we don't create a hole there. So there we go, we pick up both the strands and we make a half double crochet. So this is how you're going to continue. Then you do a chain 1, you turn, and once again you work your way back. So here, this one, I always sort of go in there, then I bring it back, pick up something there, that's fine. Because of the way we turn, that's how we have to do it. Then we skip the one, of course, that we're working from. We skip this one, we go into the next one. And then you go into the next one to do your next one. There we go. Okay, so this is how you're going to continue all the way until, let me show you, you make it all the way here. So I am just doing my last little row of ribbing of the base, and I've had to fudge here a little bit, so not skip as many stitches as you would normally, to make sure that actually I ended on this outermost point here. So if you look at your cardigan now, let me take the hook out. There we go. So if you look at your cardigan, you are now on the other side, on the right hand panel, and you are at the lowest point here. So this is the location where we're now going to start doing the ribbing for the front. So the way to get started is to pretend that you are just getting started again, like we have been, with chaining a number of chains and then starting your half double crochets. So I'm going to get started with chaining 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is my turning chain. I will be doing 6 stitches again in this ribbing, and for this ribbing it is important that you have an even number of stitches. So I've done uneven, but of course the chain drops away, so you're going to get started by doing your half double crochets in the back loop only, and of course in this case I am doing 6 of them, so that's my even number. And when you get close to the panel, you're going to have to do the same kind of slip stitches as before. So you slip stitch to attach, and then you slip stitch to start your next row. And of course we are not going to have the ease of having V's. So here you have a little bit of V's, but then here you just have the bodies of the stitches, and you're just going to have to find locations to go into which are nicely spaced out and which make sense. So not too few, not too many. So you just have to make sure that it looks right at regular intervals. So here I'm going to skip this one, going to go into this one here to attach, and then into the next one for my slip stitch. There we go. Now, this is how you start your ribbing. If you're not doing any buttons, or you are sewing on toggles and loops, then you can go ahead and do your ribbing. If you want to put on buttons, you're going to have to work out where you're going to put these buttons. So here is about where the straight end finishes, and I'm putting my buttons here. But for this little cardigan I am going to use these dinky little ones I found for quite similar buttons, some stitch markers. So these are my locations for my buttonholes. Each time I reach the height of a stitch marker, I'm going to create a buttonhole. So then when you get to a stitch marker and you are ready to do a buttonhole, you're going to do your normal row. So you're going to turn as usual. This is my slip stitch. I'm now going to turn, and this time I'm going to do 3 stitches. So 3 half double crochets. There we go. Then I'm going to cut off the yarn, pull out the end here. I'm going to remake a slip knot, insert it, and I'm just going to continue as if I was just still doing my row. The reason is, of course, we need to make an opening, and it's not easy to make this in any other way, and this is the most straightforward. So now I'm going to do my turn as usual. So let's turn the ribbing. There we go. I've done my turning chain, starting my half double crochets again. And then here, of course, you've got to find that back loop of the top of that half double crochet, the standing half double crochet that you did. There you go. Okay. Now, if you're making a buttonhole for a really big button like mine here, so there we go. We cut this off and we pull this out. And then here, new one. Let's have a look. So pull it out. Then here we start with the new slip knot and the new piece of yarn, and I try to sort of keep it tensioned a little bit to help. There we go. So you go into the back loop, maybe pick up a third loop just to keep it all a little bit tighter. There we go. And then this is the end somewhere, right? It's a little bit fiddly, but this is the most straightforward way. There we go. And so you do your 3 stitches and you attach as normal, just finding sensible locations to go into. Then you turn. And this time my buttonhole is now big enough for my big buttons. So you go into that standing one there, and now you pick up this one here. You make sure you see the V's on top of your stitches, and you pick up the back loop. If you want to, you could also pick up a third loop if you can find one, just so that it is tighter. Keep this down. There we go. Voila. and you do your 3 stitches. So another one, and the last one under the 2 strands. Voila. And as you can see, our stitches do not meet at the base, so that has made this buttonhole even bigger. And yes, we have got all these ends hanging here, but as you know, a buttonhole, yeah, it's used, you push your button through. So in fact, I don't really mind having all these edges. I sew them in nicely around the edge of your buttonhole, and that reinforces it. So as you can see here, I did it just the once, and I straight away, so I did 3, 3, and then straight away the next row I did the 6 again, and you still have the opening at the base of that next row. And here I will have to sew in those ends, and that will look here. This is where I have sewn in the ends, and that has reinforced that buttonhole. That is not going anywhere. Okay, so my small button goes through here really nicely. Voila. And here, this big one here, let's use this one because I haven't got any other one. There we go, that goes in nicely as well. Okay, so by the time you've reinforced that a little bit, it will become a little bit smaller, but again, make sure you can still get your big button through, right? So I did the same here, and make sure you divide the buttonholes equally along your ribbing on the front there. After you have finished making your buttonholes, you can continue doing your ribbing all the way around your front opening until you meet the left hand base of your panel. How to put the button on. There's a little strand that I can see that is from the bottom, I hope. The bottom panel. Yeah, look. There we go. So now I have the stitch marker in the location where it would be really handy if I could attach my button there. And here I'm just going to get started with a piece of thread, not too long, you don't need much. So of course here I've only got 2 buttonholes, and I'm just going to go through once, but for your bigger cardigan, of course, if you have 4 buttonholes, go through once each time and then do it again, okay? So you go through the 2 buttonholes twice each time. But I just wanted to explain how I do this. So I turn my cardigan inside out, and I start weaving in my thread quite away from my buttonhole, or from where my stitch marker is. So I'm just going to pull this through like this, so the end is just there. Then I do a loop the loop and do a bit more sewing in, a bit more, and as you can see, I am slowly making my way towards the stitch marker. Okay, but look at this. Having done that, look, I'm pulling. This is not going to come undone. This is already woven in and you can't see it anywhere. Okay, so now I think I need to come up to, yeah, there we go, to meet the stitch marker. There we are. Voila. See? And of course, yes, this is where it's supposed to be, but also make sure it's in the middle of your little ribbing there. So I'm going to come out. My thread is far too long. I'm going to remove the stitch marker, and I'm going to get my button. I'll take my needle through my hole. And of course, yes, I needed to use this needle because otherwise I couldn't get through the holes there. And I'm going to go back through. Now this is just the one pass, as I said. If you have a bigger button, or you have, you know, your own cardigan where it needs to be a lot sturdier, do it just a couple of more times if that still looks okay, right? So now I'm going to go back through the fabric to the other side, and when you do that, make sure that there's nothing twisted here and that you don't end up with your button hanging off like this. So pull it nice and tight, and to make sure it is tight at the back, we are going to straight away do some sewing in. So you're not going through to the button, through to the buttonholes, but you're just working in your fabric behind your button. There we go. And I've pulled it really tight. There is no opening in between there. See, and again. And I do that a few times. So like I said, I am not going through the button anymore, but this would now be a time for you to go through the button the second time if you have 4 holes, and then do the same thing again, attach it here. Then once again, go through them again and again. So each time I tend to make sure I have sewn into my fabric here, just to make sure that not only you're reinforcing the fabric there, you are also attaching the button. And I believe reinforcing the crochet fabric for when we have a button attached is not going to be a luxury, I don't think, because it will only enhance the lifespan of what we are making here. So there we go. All you need to do now is sew in your ends and enjoy wearing your cardigan. I hope you have enjoyed making it, and I know this was a long video, but I think it was absolutely worth it because there were so many things to tell you. And look at this cardigan. I think the cardigan is worth it. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!